What's up guys, the Dragon here, and I welcome you all to my next video of my Payday 2 Armory. For this episode, I'll be cover up the American Remington 870 shotgun. This shotgun, the Remington 870 is probably the most popular shotgun on worldwide. It's been mainly used for sports shooting, hunting, self-defense, and used by law enforcement and military organization alike. And it's definitely one of the more reliable pump-action shotguns, alongside with the Mossberg 88. You just can't go wrong for having one of these weapons. It was designed in 1950, and it's still been used still today. It's been used so far in 3 wars, that being this Civil War, the Vietnam War, and the Iraq War. Of course, there's at least over 11 million has been made, and of course by manufacturer of Remington Arms. So this particular variant, I have carried 2 of them right here, is the 870 field gun, a more modern version of the old wooden stock of the weapon. And well, there's going to be a 2-for-1 video where I'll be covering up 2 weapons as opposed to having one each separable, because well, these 2 weapons are essentially identically the same. The Reinfeld 88 and the Locomotive G12 are just essentially the same shotguns, except for, well, one's it's much more smaller and is a sawed-off version and does have a little different stats. That's basically the little difference, and also I'll go to the stats, but let's talk about the primary weapon, the Reinfeld 88 or the Remington 870. So, by the stats, it holds 6 rounds in the tube, 12 ammo of 42, damage, a rate of fire of 104, damage of 90, accuracy of 40, stability of 32, consumer of 11, threat of 28, and a reload time of 4.8 seconds. And as for the secondary, the sawed-off 870, the Locomotive, will have a magazine of 6, 12 ammo of 42, rate of fire 160 RPM, damage of 90, accuracy of 48, stability of 46, concealment of 23, threat of 28, and a reload time of 4.8 seconds. So between these 2, the Locomotive is definitely much more stronger by default. It has a much higher rate of fire, has better accuracy, stability, and concealment. Which, it doesn't make sense, because it should be the Reinfeld that should do at least a little bit more accuracy, stability. Because you have a stock which should control your stability of the weapon, or the recoil, and it has a longer barrel, so you should be more accurate at longer ranges than the Locomotive. Which, it's stupid. Plus, this is a primary shotgun, while the sawed-off is a secondary, which doesn't make sense. Alright, let's actually get to the base model of the weapon and see all the little details. So it's a nice little black gun, very common shotgun you'll definitely see by police forces and military units. Of course, this mostly get outdated by the more semi-automatic and full auto shotguns like the M1014 and the A12, and pretty much others around. Of course, as we get closer at the front, of course we have our barrel. Our barrel. It's a more 2D barrel because we can't see the shells inside. Of course, we have our 2-fed mag. We have our black pump, and of course we have reading on the left side says Reinfeld Tactical, and honestly, it pays a nice little homage to the very first pump-action shotgun in Payday the Heist, which was called the Reinfeld shotgun, which is essentially what this weapon is. This just changed the name. So that's kind of cool. I think that's supposed to be a reference to Remington Tactical or something. I'm not really sure. Of course, there seemed to be like, looks like some type of fire selector or something, or this little piece here to the left side of the trigger guard. I know if you can't see it, but this might be help. There may be two things. Either that's like a different fire selector, or this helps you to load up the two fed of the shotgun. You can actually see where you feed the gun by loading it from the bottom. But we have a red dot, which this is where our the safety for the gun would be. So the red would probably mean fire, and I presume the other side would be safe, or something like that. And of course, it does have an AR-15 pistol grip, a very solid stock too. And of course, we can see the iron sights. It's pretty much like a huge ball, like a huge billiard ball or pool ball. But as we get to the close to the iron sights, it's just a simple ball, no big deal. Perfect enough anyway, because well, it shoots buckshot, so it's not really meant to be accurate unless you use the AP slug, where you do need to aim. And as we get to the back, well, there's not really much on the right side except we see our bolt, of course our ejection port, and of course this little piece here that holds the two fed together, that latches on top of the barrel. This little piece here could be used for, well, a bayonet. And yes, you can use a bayonet on a shotgun. Why? Just because you can. Alright, now it's time to look at the solid version of the Remington 870, which is the Locomotive. And you can see this is much smaller gun, so everything you see here will be the same thing on the 870. Of course, the front of the gun is a lot more different. And of course you can see it's very compact with this barrel. And I noticed the barrel looks bigger when it's close to the gun, but when it comes to close to the front, it shrinks down a little bit. And of course, this is a very thick pump by the looks of it. Pretty thick. We have our same fire selector, AR-15 grip. And, well, there's just also a little piece here on the stock, which I'm presuming this is where you... I'm not really sure the feature of this, though, other than, well, I see like a little bent piece on top of the, where you have the stock. It could be like a piece for a sling to hold onto the gun, but without actually carrying it in your hands. But everything about it is just, well, it's just like the other weapons, just much more smaller. And of course, they will both carry the same attachments, while they still have some uniqueness to it. At least, I think the 870 has one unique attachment that the sawed-off version doesn't have. So I'll go over the attachments that you can put on this weapon. Of course, you can pick any ammunition of your shotgun of choice, different barrel extensions, different boosts, including the -4 accuracy boost. Now, this comes with a Zombie Hunter pump, which all it does is increase stability, and you can see it's very orange, and by the looks of it, it removes that huge piece, but of course, increased stability, and despite for being the color being more brighter, it doesn't decrease concealment. So, nice to have, especially if you want to control the weapon even more. We can have our gadgets, and the gadget actually lays basically below the pump, which it's a kind of an odd spot to put, but considering this weapon does not have any accessories on top, and it just fits so weird onto the weapon itself. Just a little bit weird. Of course, we have our different grips that you can put on for their on the shotgun. Since this is the same as the AR-15s, it makes sense to be able to put this on. Magazine, you have an extended mag, which is a 2-fed, so you can enable this, add this, and somehow this adds extra 2 rounds in the mag while you lose concealment. But I think before, I think this used to give you a +2, always a +2 mag, but I don't think it doesn't decrease your concealment. I don't think it did before they, I don't know when they add this -1 concealment. But by the looks of it, it doesn't even make sense to fit with 2 shell. It should be like 7 rounds, because that's just one piece of the tube, which normally would fit just for 1 shell. Which is kind of weird. I mean, this is supposed to, I think it's supposed to hold 8 like by default, but, or it could be additional 9 if you have this, but. Now when it comes to sights, of course you have a scope mount. Just like most weapons you see, like a MAC-10, it will have it right set on top of the ejection port, and basically clear view, so it also gives a nice opening window to get the empty shells ejected out of the feeding chamber. And then we have, of course, a lot of stocks. It has lots of unique stocks for these shotguns. Now we got the short enough stock, which is basically, that's where the base locomotive use. And then we have the short enough tactical stock, and of course with this, it creates a large accessory, and of course this is where the optic can be fit perfectly. But if I remove the optic, now you just have this huge piece in the way, and I notice there's no iron sights at the top. The iron sight is basically below where the gun is. You can actually see where it is right there. And of course if I try to aim with this, well, this actually blocks my view, and it really sucks. So it's kind of nice. You can see the pigtail rail looks a lot more different, because each bumps are a lot more spread out. But when you're close to the end of the gun at the back, they're a lot more closer compared to the rest of the inches of the pigtail rail. And now we have the government issue tactical, which is essentially the exact same thing with the short enough tactical stock, just added with the solid stock instead. And finally we have the Molden stock, which of course reference to the character in Jurassic Park, just before he flips this up with the Spaz 12, and before he got a little ambush from the left side. And so his famous line, "Clever girl," just before he get his face chewed up by a raptor. So this is essentially kind of cool looking. I mean, this looks like this definitely looks like a Spaz 12 at the time, except it's a much clearer window compared to the actual Spaz 12 stock, which is ridiculous. So these are the uniqueness to the weapon. And now for the locomotive, which are essentially the same thing. You have a different type of ammunition, barrel extensions, boost, gadgets, which of course is the exact same thing, loaded right below the pump, different grips, magazine, and funny enough, this one does increase, but even though it fits like one shell, and doesn't decrease concealment for some reason. Sights, well, I mean, I don't really have to go over it, but of course you can put it here, and then nothing's really much changed other than and however it does come with a standard stock, so it does, I mean, it does look like the other shotgun. There's a much more clear view though, so it's essentially the same, just, I mean, it's the exact same one, it's the same thing. And of course, with the stock is definitely how the locomotive was in Payday the Heist. And funny enough, this weapon was actually one of the worst weapons in Payday the Heist, the locomotive. Until people complained to Overkill about it and give their feedback to buff the weapon. And well, at launch, it was one of the most powerful weapons in Payday 2. At launch, before they had new weapons and before the judge was a thing. I also forgot to mention between these two, they both have shell racks as well. I don't know why I kind of skipped past it, but they both have shell racks, so, and they're the only two shotguns to use the shell rack. And funny enough, this increases your magazine capacity, which, how does this increase your rounds? Like, just having a accessory of holding more ammunition to the side of the gun, somehow you can able to shoot more before you have to reload. Of course, this decreases your concealment by 2, but honestly, it's been like this at launch, and a change I would love to make with this shell rack is, instead of increasing your magazine capacity, this should increase your total ammo instead. Especially if you can able to hold like 6 shells here. I know it has 5, but if you could put one more in, then you're able to have a total of 6 more rounds, which would be nice. And also would be cool to have, you know, if you pick one of the ammunition for the shotgun, then the shell rack for the shotgun model will have a different color. So for triple buck would be maybe, well, red. HE rounds would be something much more different. Maybe like, maybe yellow. Flechette round, maybe blue. AP rounds would be like green for slugs. And Dragon's Breath will be fire, and the shells will have a different color. I say that would be kind of a cool attention to detail. And I'll show you, well, my 2 fully decked out shotguns, which are essentially the same. So, you can see it's looked pretty decked out. I mean, it looked pretty good besides from the gadget. It looks pretty amazing. And now for the start off 870. And it's essentially almost the same thing. Now, I always question myself, why is the locomotive shoots faster than the 870? And I'm concerned with how many pump action shotguns we have in the game. If I compare between all the shotguns in terms of the rate of fire in the pump action, the locomotive is the only one with 160 RPM. All the others is 104 RPM. And even in lever actions, 80, that's slow, but 104 is usually the way they have it. Even the KSG is 104. I don't think there's any other shotguns. I don't think even the new shotgun from the Smuggler weapon pack has the same rate of fire as the locomotive. I could be wrong, but I'm gonna say it's still 104, and the locomotive is faster, which doesn't make sense. But I do have a theory on this. Considering that this shotgun here is much more larger, but it shouldn't be a big deal for the pump action. But I think it's probably due to the size of the pump. You basically, it will reload. You actually pump it and fire much slower because of the pump being large. And the sawed-off 870, the size of the pump, it's smaller. So doesn't that mean that you can be able to pump the weapon faster and shoot even more faster and dish out a bit more compared to the having a pump that is much more large or big? That's the only a reason I say why this weapon shoots very fast. Alright, that's quite a big talk with you cover up 2 weapons. Alright, let's test these out at the firing range. See you there. Alright, we're at the firing range with the Remington 870, along with its shorter brethren, the sawed-off 870. And you can tell the iron sights are quite small. And it's just nothing but a large ball. Although the regular 870 has much more smaller on the C, while the locomotive is a lot more presence with the sight, which I think sawed-off definitely wins. But yeah, let's load these bad boys up and see how devastating they are. Alright. I'm cocked and loaded. Going hot. I mean, of course you should expect from a pump action shotgun, it's not really going anywhere. And you can see how many pellets it shoots. It shoots at 8. So I'll let it go away again and... Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Strange enough, it has 10 rounds, which normally a 12 gauge would have 8 pellets. This one has 10, which is pretty strange. Alright, now let's whip out the sawed-off. Alright. Here we go. I do apologize about that because my controller... I do apologize about that because my controller still messed up. Even when I aim, it makes me want to shift to the left. So, you can definitely tell this one, the sawed-off shoots a bit faster than the pump. And I think it looks a little more different too if you look at the model. Alright, let's see. Let me see how it looks. Okay, they're likely about the same. Except this one's a little small. Like I said, it's probably due to the size of the pump. So, I could probably show you how much of a rate of fire these two have a difference. Alright. Here we go. Now you can definitely see that the The Reinfeld is definitely much more slower than the Locomotive. And that's a pretty big deal. Which, normally, primary weapons usually supposedly do more devastating than secondaries. But in Payday 2's law, I gotta say, I think they're meant to be at least try to be evenly at each other, because after all, if you want a Locomotive as your primary, you can use a Reinfeld, or if you want to use a Reinfeld as a secondary, go with the Locomotive. Except the Locomotive is just better in every way, in shape and form, and a reputation. And is this the one that says buff the Loco? I don't know, there's supposed to be like a graffiti around here that says buff the Loco, but I don't know if this was removed or kind of kept. So if you do know where it is, let me know in the comments section. Alright, time for the two fully decked out shotguns. I'll see you in a sec. Alright, here we are with both of my fully decked out 870 shotgun. Of course, this is the Locomotive, and this is the Reinfeld. Alright, let's see how they do. Man, I totally forgot that I hold 10 rounds as opposed to 6 or 8. But that's what you get with this weapon. And now, the same thing with the Locomotive, but twice as fast. Okay, maybe I was a little bit itchy trigger finger on the beginning of the first 3 shots, but it goes to show that's how fast this weapon is. Alright, now I'm going to compare it again with the rate of fire, and yes, I know there's a skill that increased the weapon's rate of fire for the pump action, so when you are just hip firing, so that's actually quite interesting. But let's see how they do. Not bad for the spread, especially when you hip fire, and of course I don't have a laser sight equipped for either of these two. Which I should, but I guess for the sake I won't. And now for the Locomotive. I say they look identically the same, but also considering the fact that the Locomotive I have equipped for the barrel extension is the King's Crown compensator, while the Reinfeld... Oh, never mind, I meant the Locomotive has the shark teeth nozzle, and the Reinfeld has the King's Crown compensator. Pardon me for that. And, well, there's one thing I could show you, which is I have my silent Locomotive, even though I did not show you guys during the, well, when I look at my fully decked out of the shotguns, but I will clip it out in a second. So, see you in a bit. Oh, here's my silent stealth Locomotive. And you can definitely see I have the silent killer suppressor, a tube mag which holds 8 rounds. This rail which gives you more concealment, which of course when I aim down the sights, I have no iron sights and I have just this pigtail rail in the way, so I have no clear vision, but it doesn't really matter on a shotgun because, well, shotguns just go anywhere. this was the OG back then, where before the Judge was a thing, a lot of people would just use this as their stealth shotgun, especially when people learn how ragdoll physics works in stealth. This was the weapon that people choose a lot, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, the only thing that's like loud when you use a suppressor is basically the action you do, like the pump action and the shells hitting the floor. That's pretty much about it for the stealth. I know I didn't do like tests like, oh, trying to control recoil and all that, but considering this is the pump action, there's not really much test to go around other than see how fast you can fire the weapon, and we definitely see it. Well, now time for my conclusion on the two shotguns at hands. I'll see you soon. Overall, the Remington 870 shotgun is definitely a very fun shotgun to use, and definitely a good weapon added during the release of Payday 2. Now, sadly, I feel like the primary version doesn't get much love, and probably due to get outclassed like the KSG, which double up its magazine capacity, has the same damage, same rate of fire, but can have a much larger magazine, has way better concealment, and of course the secondary is much more better than the primary version, which is the Locomotive. Well, the Locomotive's case, it's still been used, although it's not very popular thanks to the uses of the Judge. Especially the Judge has a higher damage, faster rate of fire, fast reload speed, and much more higher concealment. While the Locomotive still gains an edge in terms of able to reload a shell, and if you get interrupted during your reload process, you can actually fire back with no problem because you can able to reload shells individually, so you can actually master the whole reload and fire technique, which does save you in a quite big pinch, especially on the highest difficulty. Of course, I do like the Locomotive. I still think this is the best secondary shotgun that you can ever have, especially if you don't have any skills to invest to, like getting a secondary saw, or you just... But most of the time people will use a secondary saw, but if they feel like they don't want to use the saw as a secondary, and they just want to use a fun weapon, and just want to use a saw as a primary, the Locomotive is a really good weapon choice back then, until they got some rework with skill points, the perk decks, and well, basically the whole weapon balancing. It's really fun to have, and not to say, I really like to see the Reinfeld to get a little bit of buff, and to make it more interesting, make the rate of fire for the Reinfeld shoots at 160 RPM, and also make the accuracy and stability the same as the Locomotive, while having the Locomotive's accuracy and stability be the same as the Reinfeld's, which should be because concerning the size of the weapon. But yeah, so these are two great weapons. Now you can definitely see with the Reinfeld, when I compare it to the KSG, it's a much better shotgun, and you may see the reload time being that long. That's only applied when you reload the whole thing entirely, like emptied. But you can able to cut that off, and if you have like shot 6 rounds with the KSG, it basically reloads the same way, and it has a better accuracy, better stability, and more concealed. It just beats it out, just blows it out of the water. And that's in the case for, well, the Locomotives, and comparing to the other pump actions. So far we only have another one, which is the GPS, or the Stakeout, or the Ishta 37, which does have a slow rate of fire, does have more damage, 1 extra round, but, and a little more stability, but the Locomotive has more better attachments than the Stakeout. So yeah, that's I have to say they're pretty fun shotguns. Although they mostly get, well, the Reinfelds mostly get outclassed by the KSG, while the Locomotive mostly got dethroned from the Judge, especially both in terms of loud and stealth. But yeah, thank you for watching, everyone. Until next time, farewell and have a wonderful day, everyone.